Hello and welcome back to the Knits and Notions podcast. I am Kira. I use they, she pronouns, and you may know me as @StrangeBun on Instagram, or through my shop, or whatever, or through here. Hi, I'm back again. I'm so glad to be back in this space with all y'all, and it's been nice seeing comments and some feedback from my last episode after having been gone for a little bit. But yeah, it's spring now, which feels wild. I really like how I tend to pop in kind of seasonally in my podcast. So things always feel really different. And I feel like I'm in a different vibe with my knitting, as well as just where I'm at in life in general. So it's always a really fun time to just catch up and reflect on what I've been up to. I will say I am a little bit sad that I hadn't been able to get back in here more sooner, because I really wish I could cultivate this space to be more of a regular occurrence in my life, but unfortunately that's just not what is in the cards, obviously, for me. I guess I just want to start off with just a little bit of a chatty catch up. So as you can see, I have a new sweater on that was not here last time. And we'll get into that, as well as some things you might see hanging up in the background. I have a lot of Handspun updates for you all here, that you've probably seen online on my Instagram as well. But I also have a lot of life updates that I wanted to chat about here. So as I mentioned, it is springtime now, and it's been a very interesting spring, because it has been freaking raining so much in Southern California. The other day, I actually was just reminiscing on my time here, living in California, and I realized with my partner that we have lived here since 2019, and that is, according to my math, I think that's 4 or 5 years, right? Going on 5 years? I don't know, 2019, 21, 20, 21. Yeah, this year is going to be our 5th year, I guess. Or technically maybe 2024 is, because I moved here specifically late 2019. Anyways, all I have to say, it's just really weird, because I feel with a lot of people, we might feel this way, especially if you made a move right before or during the pandemic. Time just feels like it was boop, 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 fast forward, and now we're here, and I don't feel like it's been 4 or 5 years at all. And I know I'm not the only one to say that, because my partner is also what the heck? And it's just wild, and it's really weird to me to be recognizing weather patterns and climate change patterns. Climate change in the real, the big scope, but also just the way that this climate has changed, I guess, just during the time I've lived here. And just, yeah, I feel I'm very in touch with the weather and just what's going on wherever I live. It, impacts my mood. I think everybody is. Weather is weather, right? But I find myself always just thinking a lot about it, especially living here in California, because the drought and just the real ways in which the weather really impacts our day-to-day lives, and things that happen with power outages and wildfires and all this sort of stuff, right? It's very much more on my radar, I guess, than it was when I lived in the Midwest, where I grew up. I guess I didn't really notice it as much. But anyways, it has just been so rainy, and I'm sure if you know anybody from LA, they've said the same thing. It's just so rainy this year. And it's been really weird, because it's so much greener than I'm used to seeing it here, and I really like it. And I think a lot of people are liking it too, just because it's, obviously helping the drought situation. But it's made me feel a little bit more like I'm back at home a little bit more, back where rainy seasons in the spring and things like that are more common. So yeah, it's been really lovely, and I kind of forgot what it's like to go outside during the rain and how much that kind of sucks, and as well as the gloomier days, but I'm trying to be grateful that we have it while we do, because, this is very unusual for this area. So yeah, that's what I spent my morning doing, is being out in the rain and practicing a little bit of gratitude when I got a little bit annoyed at just like, I'm wet. I need to like use my windshield wipers. Like, oh God. So yeah, that's what's been on my mind today. And yeah, I've been doing a lot of schoolwork and stuff. I had spring break last week, and I was really hoping to have filmed a podcast during that time, but a lot of personal stuff was just happening. One of the things is that I finally went and got my annual checkup, because I am not uninsured. I am insured now with health insurance, which I previously wasn't for a couple years there. And so as soon as I've been able to get in the doctors, I would have been like, okay, I gotta go. And I've also like, encouraged my partner to do the same, because it's just hard sometimes, going to a doctor is not fun. And yeah, but we're trying to like take advantage of it since we have it. And it was not great news so far, just with my trip to the doctor. There's a number of concerns, and I don't know how much I want to talk about it here, but I do want to mention it. Just in general, is that, I know a lot of people in my life deal with like chronic illness and different things like that. And I am contending with a possible like chronic diagnosis, possibly, which is reversible, but it could be, mean a lot of things for me down the line in terms of my general health. And so, yeah, I've just taken a lot of considerations right now into how I can best take care of myself. And it's been going well so far. So it's been about like 2 or 3 weeks since I've made a lot of different changes to my life regarding my health. And I've already been able to see some good things, like good progress. And so that's just one thing that's kind of been in my life lately that has prevented me from being here as much as I want to. But I am going to be having a conversation with my doctor today to tell me like what's really going on. So fingers crossed I'm all good, or as good as I can be. And I'm hoping as well that, I can make the changes I need to make within what's possible to maybe revert some of the more scarier things that I'm dealing with. So yeah, that's really been life lately. It's just like doctor visits and crafting and school and a little bit of anxiety because change is happening, which always tends to hit during spring. And I don't know if I'm going to feel this way when I'm not a student, because I feel like as a student, like the student life cycle in the spring is always when like things start feeling like a little bit like, oh my gosh, change, because it's like usually your last semester before summer and it means another school year is coming or you're graduating, which for me, it's the latter. I am going to be graduating in May, which is always a very terrifying thing to think about. So a lot of those feelings of just like anxiety are kind of bubbling up for me as I approach May and graduation. But I'm also trying to keep myself hopeful for the future and just open to whatever is out there for me, because who knows. But I am glad to say that I've been really enjoying my schooling and the work that I've been doing. I found a lot of fulfillment in my role right now as like a counselor or a therapist or whatever, working with like my fellow trans community members, and that has been really great. So I'm trying to lean more on the hopeful side versus like the scared side. So yeah, that's been me. Oh, I also got some new glasses. If you can, I don't know if it's like, they don't look very different from my last pair of glasses, honestly. But I really like them, and I went for like a lot more of like a cat eye style. It was really funny because when I was choosing new glasses, I was like, oh, maybe I should go for like a more wire frame type of thing, because I think that's like a little bit more trendy right now, or like, trying to like do something a little bit more trendy, because I felt a little bit like, oh, or like thick rim glasses, like not as cool anymore or whatever, which is so silly. And I feel like glasses are like the one kind of like thing in my life that tends to really feel like it's like informed by like fast fashion. Like because I have to change them so regularly. And I don't really buy like any clothes or anything like that. So I always start thinking about like the trends and like what's in or whatever related to my glasses. But I think I've kind of fallen into like my own like signature style, which is just, I really like these like tortoise shell and like cat eye frames. And I think this like lens size fits my face a little bit better than my last ones. Anyways, but I really like them, so that's something else that's been new. Enough about life updates and so on. Let's get into the knitting. I have been knitting a lot, but I've also been spinning a lot more, I feel like, and there's been a little bit of like sewing, quilty action as well. And there's a lot for me on the horizon with planning projects for knitting in general and just, yeah, a lot of things that I've been thinking of lately. But let's start off with what I'm wearing. So as you can see, and as you might have seen already online, is that I have finished and am really loving this Ursina pullover designed by Jackie Cieslak, which is like an amazing designer. If you watch me, you already know, I'm sure. But this is actually my first Jacqueline Cieslak pattern that I've fully finished. So I had previously tried to knit the osprey sweater, but I didn't really have a yarn that I felt like worked really well with it. And I kept on having weird issues like with fit with that one. So I frogged that in, true Kira fashion. And I'm glad that I did this pattern and I finally have a finished design by her in my wardrobe. But yeah, I really love it and I've been wearing it to freaking death. I think I've been wearing it like every single day. And part of that is because I've been trying to film a knitting podcast. So in the mornings I'll like get ready and I'm like, oh, okay, today's the day I'm going to film a podcast. I better wear my new sweater so I can like talk about it and show it off. And then I always end up not being able to film a podcast episode. But today was the day, turns out. But so yeah, if you're not familiar with the Ursina, this is a pattern that is written for 2 weights of yarn. There's a sport weight and then there's a worsted weight version, I believe, written into the pattern. And I did this sport weight version, and this is using the same yarn that you might recognize from my last episode of the Baracco yarn, Lana's Light, that I had previously tried to knit that cozy classic raglan for my partner, which didn't pan out. And then oops, here it is now as a sweater for me. I still need to buy him new yarn to make him a proper sweater because that was part of his Christmas present from me that is going to need to be done soon. So this is the Ursina. This yarn worked really well for this pattern, I think. It's really cute and very comfy. I will say it's very pilly, which it's kind of hard to see just in terms of like with the heatheredness of this yarn. You might be able to see it here on the underarm area a little bit. I've taken my gleaner to it once already, and a lot of the areas have kind of like started to pill again. But in my opinion, like it's not a huge concern for me, especially because it's not really noticeable and it's not too extremely pilly to the point where it's like really annoying me or it looks really raggedy. I think it still looks nice. And yeah, I pretty much just knit this pattern to the exactly way it's written. All the way down to like the sleeves. I usually do a little bit of a shorter sleeve, but with this sweater, for whatever reason, I think it's because it just has like an unfinished cuff. I like the way it already just naturally rolls down. And so I don't find it as annoying as some other sweaters that have like a ribbed cuff. And if I knit the full sleeve length, I'm constantly just like, bleh, like messing with them. But not the case for this one. Yeah, my hands are free. My wrists are free. Yeah, it's a really great fit. And I really love the half brioche stitch, like detail, triangle little guy there. And this sweater just knit up like super quickly as well. I don't know what it is about Jackie Slusack patterns, like at least from the Osprey, it had a very similar construction where you kind of start out like working it flat and then you're like joining with like the V shape. That sort of construction goes super quickly for me. I don't know why, compared to like the typical raglan with just like the neckline and then the normal, whatever. This shaping with like the V neck design that is in a couple of her patterns, just, yeah, it flies off the needles for me in a really pleasant way. And so, yeah, I've just been loving it. I love all the details of the sweater. Whoa, you can see where my elbow has been and everything like that. Yeah, very, very well loved knit here already from me. And so to hop in, let's also talk about something I mentioned last episode, which is, ta-da! I have some socks. I have some worn, stretched out socks for y'all. Aren't you so glad? No, so last episode, was very frogging heavy, and it was also very re-knit, like repurposing yarn heavy. So these are the socks I knit with some yarn that was previously in a pair of socks for my partner, and once again turned into a pair of socks for me. A major theme in my life apparently is knitting things for Erin and then coming out on the other side with more things for me, which is just like, oopsie, once again. It's something that we always joke about together a little bit because I'm always constantly trying to knit him stuff, and just finding the fit for other people is so hard because, like, no matter how much I measure, it's like, it's just difficult, right? Because I don't always want to force him to try things on, like, in the middle of when I'm knitting it. And I think other people who are not knitters have a lot less patience for, like, constantly trying things on with, like, the needles still on them, and it's just like, So it's really hard for me to get a good fit for him. But, through trial and error, I know I'll get there. But anyways, yes, these are socks I knit with the reclaimed yarn from his old socks. And they're just very basic and vanilla. Once again, very quick knit for me. And it's also knit in superwash yarn, which I tend to prefer more recently with some of my more vanilla socks that I can just wear more frequently and not have to worry about treatment of them too much. But one thing I have noticed about superwash yarn is that for whatever reason, maybe it's just these yarns, it's really slippery on my floors. So whenever I wear these socks, I feel like I have to like walk, like waddle on the ground, like do, like not slide my feet like normal, because I almost fall and eat shit like constantly. So that's one consideration I've like been thinking about lately with these socks, or like my more like slippery yarn type of socks, is that I really need like a pair of house slippers to wear them with to have like ultimate cozy vibes, but also because I need like some grippiness so that I don't hurt myself. So that's just something I've been thinking about. Also, a little bit, I have been considering putting like those little like sock grippies, like, those like little plastic sock grippies that are on like those hospital socks or like on baby socks. I've been thinking, I'm like, what if I got those for my socks? But I don't even know like where I'd get them. And I also don't really like the idea of just like adding these weird little plastic bitty things onto here that sometimes like they fall off, and then you just have like these weird bits of like plastic, and it's a mess. But I don't know. Let me know if you have any tips and tricks for slippery socks, if you have laminate flooring, to prevent yourself from getting hurt. And maybe I just need a pair of slippers. I just got interrupted by a call from my doctor. Everything's good, I think. It's just very interesting. Anyways, I'm not going to get back into it all right now. One thing that I did hear is that my vitamin D levels are extremely low. Apparently, my whatever numbers, I don't know how it's measured. She just said mine was 9 and it should be 30. So I need to go outside or something. Actually, I'm getting supplements. Anyways, so I forgot what I was talking about. Oh, I think I was talking about socks. Yeah, finish these socks. Anyways, I'm just going to move on because I forgot what I was talking about. But yeah, these are my 2 finished objects since last episode. Okay. So before I get into some of my whips and other creative things I've been working on, I did just want to talk a little bit more about PomPom Magazine. I know I gushed about PomPom a lot already, but I'm just here to gush more because I've come into 3 new issues, which I think I might have mentioned last time, is that, I had a big tummy ache, and then PomPom had like a big sale, and then I was like, okay, I'm gonna buy 3 copies of the ones I've always wanted because F it, I deserve it. And I just wanted to give them a shout out. And I also wanted to bring, the sale to everybody's attention, and just in terms of like, if you're somebody who's always wanted to knit from PomPom Quarterly, but struggle to afford some of the issues just because they do tend to be, pretty expensive, I would recommend to like keep an eye out. I don't know if they do this sale annually or something like that, but it's their less than perfect sale. And that is just when these 3 copies I was able to get because they are imperfect in some way. I honestly don't know how they're imperfect because from my eyes, like, they look fine, but they were heavily discounted. I think in total I might have paid, I don't know, like $40, $50 or something like that for all 3, which is a steal as far as PomPom goes, especially for these books, because I bought 3 issues that are like more of their book collaboration types of thingies and not necessarily their quarterly issues. So I got Moon and Turtle, which I'm very excited to knit from. I've mentioned before the Bergen twins. I previously started the Choco Vest by Sachiko, and I frog knit, but I really, really, really want to have a finished design from one of their things because they're just like so beautiful, so beautifully designed. There's a cardigan in here that I particularly really want to knit. It's the Ginsan cardigan. Here you can see it beautifully modeled. Apologies for if you saw my cuticle beds right now, they're peeling and horrific. Anyways, but yeah, like I really like this cardigan. It looks super cozy, and there's obviously some other beautiful designs, like just so many. You might recognize, the cover star here, the Quilty sweater, which is another wonderful colorwork design, and yeah. Just super happy to have gotten this copy and really excited to when I get to knit from it. And another one that I was so excited about and highly, highly, highly recommend to anybody who loves winter and coziness and homestead vibes and the cottagecore cozy, beautiful vibes in knitwear is Knits About Winter by Emily Foden, or Emily Foden is the main designer featured in this issue. First of all, the photography, like, outstanding, beautiful. I just want to live in here. I love so much of the design, the beautiful glittering snow, just everything about it makes my heart just ache for winter, like a true winter, because I haven't had one of those, and I don't know how long. Even in the Midwest, like living back home in Illinois, our winters had progressively gotten warmer and warmer as I've grown up, or just less snowy, at least in my recollection. But there is just so much beautiful photography, beautiful words and things to learn about. Emily Foden's yarn company, Viola and the Moon. Just so many beautiful things. How many times can I say beautiful? I don't know. But yeah, there's a lot of really beautiful patterns in here. Once again, beautiful. I can't stop. This is the Snowdrift shawl. Come on. Are you kidding me? I'd love to knit that with some Handspun. Come on. Beautiful. I'm just a broken record at this point. And I need to stop looking at this because I will spend my entire podcast episode just gazing at this and being like, beautiful, beautiful. But if you want to figure out for yourself just how beautiful this issue is and how wonderful and just cozy and lovingly curated these patterns are, I highly recommend checking it out, getting inspiration and just wanting to live in like the Arctic tundra or something, and just that's what I want to do just looking at this. So yeah, really love that issue. And then last but not least is Ready Set Raglan, which is a collection of a bunch of raglan sweaters. And there's a lot of information on here on how to knit raglans as well, like designing your own kind of raglan sweater. And there's many different raglan patterns with different like stitch patterns and different features to them that I really like and find inspiring. I really like this siren sweater because it's all pearl. It's like knit in garter stitch. It's all pearl. Yes, I have been knitting for 6 years now, or 6 years regularly, but probably like 20 years technically. Yes, it's all pearl, y'all. It has a lot of it has a really fun like cabling detail on the raglan, as well as some lace detailing around that too, which is really cool. And yeah, I'm really excited to knit from this issue as well, just because, I mean, come on. You can't go wrong with a good raglan. That's what I always say. And yeah, I'm just really excited to check out these patterns. And I highly recommend any of these to anybody who's looking to stock up on some PomPom, or if you really get like stuck trying to find patterns. I really like knitting publications like this, or like knitting pattern books in general, just because it's like a great place to go for inspiration. It's like very tactile in terms of like being able to flip through versus like just, browsing online on like Ravelry or something like that. I feel like there's a lot more pleasure to be gained from like looking at patterns in this format, at least for me. That's kind of how I feel about it. And it also feels like a little adventure sometimes, like when I have knitting pattern books, because I'm like, oh, I want to knit something. What should I knit? Let's go to the bookshelf. And like I like peruse my little books, and I'm just like, ooh, let's check this out. And you get to flip through and like hear about the inspirations that the knitters had, specifically in like Moon and Turtle and in Knits About Winter. There's like more context to like where the patterns came from in the designer's minds, what was going on, or like what they've been like thinking of through their design process, which I think is fun and cool and is a lot different than the experience of being online in terms of just like hopping on Ravelry and being like, I want to knit a sweater, and then like coming up with like a billion things, and you just get lost sometimes, and it can be chaotic. But yeah, so that's part 2 of Kira just freaks out about PomPom for like 30 minutes. Yeah. Moving on to whips. Whips. Works in progress, I guess. Yeah, that's the right way, right? Work in progresses. Anyways. I'm not working on too much lately, but I did start a very ambitious project, I guess. I don't know if it's really super ambitious in terms of like construction or anything, because it's very simple pattern to knit, but it is a very large amount of knitting to be done. And that is in the form of, let me see how I can do this without it slipping off of all my needles. Let's drop the ball. Beep, beep, beep. Here we go. Gently. Looks so goofy. Ooh, it's cute. I have never actually held it up yet. This is the humble beginnings of my stumble dress by Lydia Morrow, I believe. Also known as What Lydia Made on the Instagrams. And this is, yes, you heard it here, folks. It's a dress. And I'm so excited about it. It is knit in Pearl Soho Linen Quill in the shade called Stillwater Blue. And if this yarn looks familiar, it's because it is. It's because I frogged it, which is a very common theme of every fucking episode, apparently. Don't know why I started singing, but yes, I think I talked about this last episode. I don't know how many times I can say that as well, but I repurposed this yarn to be in a more fitting project, as well as to use up all of the yardage that I had of this yarn. So I had purchased like 4 balls of this yarn, which equals out to I think around like 1,700-ish yards of yarn, which is going to be quite a bit, and definitely enough to get me at least most of the way through the length of this dress that I would like. And I might have to purchase a little bit more, but I'm not too fussed about it since it's pretty easy to just go on Pearl Soho's site and get more of this yarn. And probably will only need like one more skein, if that, or 2 more skeins or something like that. But yeah, it's been a very lovely knit so far. So the Stumble dress, for those who might not know, are actually a combination of 2 of Lydia's designs. The Stumble, I think it's not Stumble, I think it's Rumble Raglan, Tumble Tee, and the Stumble skirt, I think. Don't quote me. I'll obviously link it here somewhere. But they were 2 of her patterns that she had knit, like designed separately, and then she had knit them together to make a dress. And this pattern is just those 2 patterns like sandwiched together, written all out as the dress pattern. And so I had like hesitated because I'd seen her knit this dress before, and I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. But it didn't really seem like something I'd be really interested in or like into necessarily. But then I had seen more people knitting it, and I also had seen Electra, who is somebody I'm in queer knitting community with, had knit it, and I was like, oh, that looks freaking sick. So I was like, I want to knit one. I've been on a really big kick with Lydia's patterns lately because the partner pullover has just recently also released, which is another pattern I highly suggest checking out if you haven't seen it already. That is super cool color work, pullover raglan sweater with a ton of modifications. You can totally make it your own thing, which is super sick and cool. But because a couple of my friends and I are going to go to Rhinebeck this year, can you tell I'm very excited? And we're all going to knit the partner pullover, and it's going to be so cool. It's going to be so cool. And so I've been like thinking like, oh, wouldn't it be so fun and cool and cute if I knit this dress and then I could wear my partner pullover over it, and it could be like a full Lydia like design sandwich beautifulness. That's just like my thoughts. And I also really like knit dresses. I actually have a fast fashion knit dress, machine knit obviously, that I had bought like years ago. That is like the only dress I still have and like to wear because it's so cozy and I love the knit fabric. And so it feels really cool to be able to knit my own little knit dress. So I'll definitely be updating on the progress on this so far, but this is where I'm at and I'm excited. I also find the process of just like knitting stockinette in the round to be lovely, beautiful for me personally. I love the mindless knit, and I personally really like having a stockinette in the round type of mindless knit, because sometimes if I knit like something flat, even if it's garter stitch, having to do like increases or different things like that, just like, bleh. This is just very nice because it's just like, boom, you go, make a tube, do it, and then just like a few shaping things, and go. So yeah, I'm excited to see how this all turns out, but so far I'm loving it, loving this yarn in this pattern, and I'm very excited for when it's done and to wear it. Well, moving right along, I also wanted to share this very fun half of a scarf knit in my Handspun yarn. Yes, you heard that right, Handspun, which is Kira language for handspun. But I like saying hamspun because that's fun and cute. And handspun sometimes sounds like I'm saying hamspun anyways. So hamspun. You tell me a ham spun that yarn? Okay, anyways. I don't know if I'm going to leave that in. That was so cheesy and dumb. Yeah, so this is it's going to be a little like scarf, very small scarf, but I was very inspired. I was very inspired to start this project by the lovely Bee of the Maker Bee podcast / Instagram / Bee. And this pattern is called The Simple Thing, I believe, and I will link it here as to the designer because I forgot their name right this moment. This pattern has been on the back burners for me a little bit as I've been knitting my stumble dress, so I haven't really messed with it much. But it is kind of like it's going to be knit up to kind of look like very similar to the Sophie shawl or Sophie scarf, which was a very popular pattern recently. And I know other people have their things with like petite knit, and personally I like to just support smaller designers when I can. I like to consider that, hey, this is a very similar pattern, and if I can support somebody who, is a smaller designer, that's cool. I don't know what I'm doing, just like trying to wear it. It'll look similar to this, but it'll be longer. And so, yeah, it's a very similar construction. But yeah, as I mentioned, I'm knitting it with my hand spun yarn, which you can see some of the, let's see if you can see some of the color variation, and ooh, very fun. And yeah, it's a very easygoing pattern. You can use like any weight of yarn with it. It doesn't matter. You'll just end up with like a chunkier scarf, a bigger scarf, whatever you want. And yeah, so this will lead me into talking about the handspun yarn, which is right here. So this is some of the handspun that I have spun since the last time I've been here. I've recently come into like this revelation with my hand spinning in terms of finally kind of nailing down a process that feels so good to me. I'll talk about that more in a little bit, but yes, so this is the yarn I spun. Wow, look at that. Jeez, it's so beautiful. You can really see like the foresty green going into like these blues and the, variegation here. And so this spun up to be a very lovely plush yarn. I guess in terms of weight, maybe it's more similar to like a DK or a worsted. Not super sure, but I really like it. And this is spun from, I think I talked about it last episode when the spin was in progress, but it's the Jakira Yarns BFL, dyed BFL that my dear friend Annabelle gifted to me. And it's just beautiful. It was a beautiful thing to spin, and it's a beautiful thing to work with now as I knit. Oops, I dropped the ball. The ball of yarn I was holding. But yeah, and you can see some more of it hanging up on my little pegboard there. But I just really love it. And this spin really reignited the fire in my soul for spinning on my little spindle. Because previously I had felt really slogged down by that process, wanting to like spin more yarn in bigger quantities of yarn, but feeling like a lot of exhaustion in terms of like the different steps of the process, the slowness of spindle spinning, especially for me. I have a very small Turkish spindle, which is the spindle I prefer to use. I actually really like it a lot more than my top whirl spindle, which is hanging back there, neglected. And that's possibly due to the fact that my top whirl spindle is a student spindle, so it's not the nicest spindle. I could probably upgrade that in the future, but my Turkish spindle is a handcrafted Enid Ashcroft spindle, which, as you can imagine, is very beautifully balanced, just spins wonderfully. and I really like the feel of it in my hands. I also just really like the act of winding the God's Eye cop on the Turkish spindle. I find that is like a really, like, I feel like a lot of like progress through that. Like the progress I make is more visible on that cop, if that makes sense to me, because it's like you're working on a new layer, each layer of the God's Eye cop. I can show you all what I'm talking about there. But yeah, so that's how I spun this on my Turkish spindle. And then I did something wild, which I'll get into talking about my next spin coming right up. Have the next yarn I've spun, which is, ta-da! Wow. Ooh. Ah. This is some lovely, fluffy, beautiful, colorful Nest Fibers Falkland wool in the colorway Farmer's Market. And then this also came into my life by way of Annabelle. I had purchased this off of them from, like, I believe that they had done the like subscription service that Nest Fiber Studios does. But didn't particularly like this colorway, and had posted it online like, hey, I'm willing to sell this to somebody. And I was like, pick me. Because I've always wanted to try Nest Fiber's yarn or wool, in terms of just like, I really find their colorways like cool and fun and beautiful. I keep dropping things, but this is part of the 4-ounce braid that I purchased, and it's all plied up and finished here. And I just like, I really love it so much. And so my last spin that I mentioned, just to drop those over there. The last spin I mentioned with the BFL yarn, I had just very much like spun the braid end to end, little attention paid to like color management. I just wanted it to be like a chill vibe. With this spin, I did do a fractal spin, and fractal, for those who are uninitiated with the concept, is just when you have like a big braid of roving or fiber or bat or whatever. Typically it's, for me, in my experience, I've always used a braid of wool roving that has like very stark like color changes in it, and like a pattern in the way it's dyed in terms of the color arrangement. Then you basically like rip that in half, separate it into 2 parts, and then half of that braid you also divide. I have divided that, like, you divide it once, but some people do other things like dividing it multiple times, the one half, then spinning all those end to end, and then you have the other half of the braid you leave unsplit typically, and you spin that end to end. And so when you ply it all together, oh, I'm getting a phone call. Please hold. Hello. So, as you saw at the end of the last clip, I had gotten a phone call from my partner, and I ended up stopping filming. So this is a different day. I'm still wearing this sweater because I've been obsessed with it, and I wear it all the time. And continuity, I guess, but not really, because I'm telling you, there is no continuity here. This is a different day. I think where I had left off was talking about this yarn that I had finished in terms of doing a fractal spin. And over this weekend, in between that last time where you just saw past me and now I'm current me, I had finished all of the plying. So this is the full amount that I got from that 5-ounce braid from Nest Fibers. And it's just so beautiful. But yeah, so this is my fractal spin. Woo! Woohoo! It's so beautiful, very springy. Today is a particularly very cloudy, windy spring day. So this is like giving me all of the beautiful, sunny, warm, floral spring vibes. So yeah, honestly, so this is what I've been working on. Since the last time you saw me, I do have some brief updates. So this is going to be kind of weird for y'all. But I had finished my little scarf, my Simple Things shawl, I guess is what it's called, or Simple Things scarf, out of my Handspun. And just look how beautiful it is. Oh my goodness. I love the subtle striping that is happening. I have more of this yarn. You can see it. It's on my pegboard hanging up there. I cannot wait to knit with more of it. I honestly, okay, so I knit this pretty short in terms of like the pattern, I guess, or how, other people had knit theirs. But look how adorable. Oh my goodness. This is like my first time working with BFL, like a finished BFL yarn. And so I never realized just like how drapey it is. So very drapey. You can see, the weight of yarn that I knit up was pretty significant. I would say like a DK or Aran weight. But it's just so lovely. It has a lot of drape to it. And I would love to knit this again, maybe with a little bit more structured yarn. But like, look at how cute. Look at how adorable. My little hood. So very cute. I can't wait till fall to like properly get to wear this a lot more. Oh my God, imagine this with a little pin right here. So cute. Anyways. But yeah, I really love it. And right now it smells like my wool wash, which smells like cedar. And it's so lovely. I love it so much. So yeah, no continuity, I guess, in this video. I finished the object I talked about earlier. And honestly, I'm not too much sure what else I talked about. So there might be some editing future or current, past, future Kira has to do. I don't know. But I did also want to share that I finished some quilty things during the time of my last recording. As some of you might be aware, I have been trying to varying degrees this past month to get my spring shop update up. And so I haven't really been working on anything for my shop. I kind of realized I put a lot of pressure on myself to make money with my shop for this upcoming month, because I might have mentioned it, like my friends and I are going to go to Rhinebeck this coming fall, and I really wanted to make it a priority to earn some money to go and to spend at the festival that's coming. So I was like, oh my gosh, like I should make some money through my shop. And yeah, but as I learned, my creativity does not run well when it's motivated specifically by monetary reasons. And that's definitely like a privilege I have, in the sense of like I run my shop primarily for just like extra funds, usually just to help out and pay off like a little bit of my student loans that I can while I'm still a student. And like, I don't need it to live, but I really felt, and I kind of do feel for a lot of working artists, in terms of the fact that it's really hard to be creatively motivated when, there's like that monetary element tied in with it. So long story short, I haven't worked on much for my shop, but I did begin making some mini quilts, aka like quilted coasters or whatever. And so this is one I just finished, which is very springy and very cute. And you'll recognize the fabric probably if you are familiar with me. This is all Phoebe Wahl Garden Jubilee collection. This is the first time that I've made mini quilts with pre-made wool batting. So typically I've been making my own wool batting out of wool roving and felting it slightly to create like one level thing, like sheet of batting for my mini quilts. But I have to say, like, I really do love just like the finished, more polished look of having the pre-made wool batting. And yeah, everything else was completely hand-pieced, hand-sewn, and hand-quilted, and the binding was attached by hand. So I figure if there's one thing I could replace in the hand making process for this, is just use the pre-made batting. There's no reason not to. So yeah, I'm really pleased with this one. It's really cute and sweet. And I have a few other smaller ones in the works. So this one doesn't have binding yet, but it's just these purple squares of linen. And on the back is this cutie gnome fairy playing the violin or viola, I'm not sure. But like, look how cute. Oh my goodness. And of course, like I really love the representation in Phoebe Wahl's work, like living for it. Living for my cottagecore fairy fantasy in people of color. I live for that. So yeah, and this one I also tried out quilting with sashiko thread for the first time, and I have to say I'm a total convert. I really love it. This one is quilted with DMC pearl cotton, as you can possibly see some of the difference. And I really love the look of sashiko thread, I have to say. So the rest are quilted with that. And I made this little star block, which was really fun to quilt, doing these just like teeny tiny little lines. And the backing is just plain. I thought it was cute to have that. And I'm thinking I might also do the binding in the same clover fabric, because my sweet friend Natasha gifted me a little bit more of that. So I have quite a bit to use on this, but yeah, look how cute. And then this is a work in progress. You can see the floppy bits of binding on it, but I'm calling it the Gnome Girly mini quilted coaster because it's full of little gnome fairy girls. And then on the back, come on, so cute. And also, hack, if you don't have those like clover, I forget what they're called, like little clips, clover sewing clips, these mini binder clips work really well. I really love them. I use them a lot for my mini quilting endeavors, and I'm really hoping I could buy a bigger pack maybe soon to use on my first full-sized quilt, which is still in progress. Really embracing the slow making on that one. But yeah, so these are the quilty things that I've been working on, and it's just a very happy little bunch, and I feel really proud of them, despite how like little and silly they are. But I use mine on my desk like all the time as my little coaster, and it does just bring so much joy to my life. So these all will be in my shop hopefully soon. Currently, while I'm recording this is the 3rd of April, so it's officially not March anymore. I did not make my imagined made-up deadline in my brain for some reason. So yeah, we'll see when I get up to it, but it'll probably be a little bit of a smaller update because I don't want to pressure myself to create things. I do want to share things I make with people, and that fills me up in a very specific way. Like, it's very joyful for me to see other people using the things that I've made and to be able to offer things to people like this. But I also don't want to ever make myself feel like I did in last month, just like tired and like not motivated to make my little stitch markers. Really love making. So yeah, that is what I've been working on for my shop. Okay. And so one last little update, or actually 2 little updates, is that I'm not sure what I showed. Oh yes, I did show my stumble dress. Oops, I dropped a stitch marker. I did show my stumble dress, and I wanted to show you where it is currently now in this huge cake that is like the size of my face, and is currently back at the neckline. So yes, my stumble dress has been frogged. And you might be wondering, Kira, why? You were so excited and like loving it. And like, why did you restart it? Well, basically I had tried it on and it was too big. And also I knit the like torso portion a little bit too long before starting the waistband. So the waistband was hitting pretty low, like below my hips. And it wasn't like the look I wanted, and it's also not what like the pattern is like written as. So I had definitely made a couple gaffes in that dress. And so yes, I restarted it, but I also sized down. And so this is a very important lesson that I did want to share with y'all, is that knitting with positive ease versus knitting with negative ease is a very different thing for me. And also everybody. But it's a very different process that I think For me personally, I need a little bit more practice with it because I'm very used to knitting things with positive ease, but with negative ease is where it gets trickier for me. I don't really realize just like how much negative ease I can have, or like how small I can go and still get the desired effect of having negative ease without it being too tight. So you see, like, it's a very delicate balance. And so with this pattern, I thought I had a gauge issue, but I measured my finished garment or not finished, but my knit garment before I had fully frogged it, because I was like, oh, it feels pretty loose. And my gauge was correct. It was 40 inches, which is what it was supposed to be at the bust. But the thing is that it was 40 inches and it wasn't fitting me with any negative ease. And so, which was surprising to me. Like, I don't know how to measure myself properly. That's all another conversation. But yeah, so I'm sizing down and I'm thinking that this will be the desired size, the desired fit. And yeah, so once again, frogging Kira, the queen, the queen of frogging, has struck again, but I'm very happy I did frog this. And this yarn needs a break. Respectfully, this Pearl Soho linen quill has been frogged and reknit a few times now. And so this will be the last and final time. I'm crossing my fingers. I will try this on a little bit more. But yeah, so those are my updates. And also, as I mentioned, I have started a new spin. And so you might remember from a previous episode is that I had wanted to spin through a couple of my smaller quantities of handspun or fiber, so wool fiber, whatever I have in my stash, so that I can start tackling a larger spin. And so that spin will be a pound of BFL fiber that I have had for so long, and I cannot let it languish in my stash any longer. I need to just like buckle up and just like spin. So I've been thinking of making a video with this wool, this current project. This is a yellow golden Falkland braid that I had from Kumasi. I've been thinking of recording a little bit of my process, like how I've been spinning and how I've found myself really enjoying my Turkish spindle and how I complete the process from beginning to end on this little guy. So let me know if you're interested in it. But basically, over the past couple of months, I have spun a 5-ounce braid with this from start to finish, plied everything. And I have also spun a 4-ounce braid with it. And now I'm also spinning, this is probably like around 3.5-ish ounces left of this as well on it. And so I'm like, if I add that all together, that's almost a pound. Like, it's getting pretty close, right? At least it's like, it seems more possible because I've finished and, plied in, like, I have all this yarn, this handspun I made. So yeah, let me know if that's interesting to you. I'll probably still do it, even if nobody cares. But I'm really excited about where I am with this process. And yeah, I'm excited to share it and just so that other people can see, like, hey, this is where I'm at. And maybe they can learn from it as well. And also, recently was my 2-year spinning anniversary. So I have been officially spinning my own yarn for 2 years. And so I'm like, yeah, I really want to bring people through where I'm at, my spinning story, how I'm all doing everything I do here, and how accessible it is for anybody else who is really wanting to get into spinning their own yarn on spindles and to learn, like, hey, you don't need a spinning wheel, you don't need anything fancy, you can just do it all right here, right? And that's something I still sometimes have to learn a little bit because I recently just really wanted to buy a spinning wheel because I'm like, I'll never be able to spin a sweater's quantity of yarn on this thing. But it's not true. It can be done. And I'd love to share that process with y'all. So yeah, that's another thought too, is like sharing the process of spinning a full pound of yarn, start to finish on my Turkish spindle. I'm not 100% sure like how interesting that would be because it's a lot of repetitive stuff. But I'm always down to showcase more of like what the process looks like, what slow making is really like in the day-to-day. So yeah, that's my thoughts. So yeah, I think I've shared everything with y'all that I've have going on. Sorry if this was a little bit of a weird episode just because I stopped in the middle and kind of rushing here at the end. But it feels really good to be back and to talk all about what I've been up to. And I'm looking forward to sharing more of like process stuff, just like what I've been up to in terms of like what my day-to-day crafting looks like. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But yeah, thank you all so much for joining me in this little crafty space online. I'll chat with you in the comments. And yeah, until then, feel free to like subscribe or like or I don't know. Hang out with me here if you want to. Okay, bye.